Hey everybody, I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to Lunch Break.
We're back.
We are back, and it is next year. It's 2021. So far, 2021 is going pretty well.
Maybe. Yesterday was interesting.
Yesterday was it was definitely interesting. It's sad to see that our country can't get along. Hopefully that will change. I hope it does. I really do. But either way, we have each other, we have the church, we have our community. And so today we've got Kyle Lawson, our good friend, one of the Lawson clan. I was thinking about it, you and your brothers, like you guys, if they know you, they know you. You know what I mean? Right. You guys are
We're hard to forget.
You're bold and you speak your mind, and I like it. I like that stuff. So it's much better than having to guess what somebody's thinking. Mm-hmm. So I love your brother very much. Both of your brothers, Ryan and Brad. We'll give them a what's up, because
hi Ryan,
they're both watching.
I miss you, buddy. That was my fishing buddy in Ventura, by the way. We would go out like in kayaks, and him and I would just fish, and it was fun.
Ryan's a beast, and so is Brad, but different kind of beast. It's
he's like a gremlin. I like Ryan because he's like a gremlin.
And see, you guys didn't live with him.
It's true.
So that's why we love him.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Kyle. We have been trying to do this for a couple of weeks, but then holidays got busy, and we ended up not doing the show for a couple of weeks. But either way, we're happy to be back with you guys, and we're happy to talk today about Kyle and his business and faith and all that other stuff. And so before we get into that, did you guys have a good holiday? Everything was good. What'd you guys do? Was it different this year with COVID?
Different. Definitely different.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was kind of the year, right? So it was expected.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Ours was different too. We didn't get together with my family, which we normally do. We ended up going to Arizona and hanging out with my in-laws a little bit. Arizona's cool. I like Arizona.
We usually do an annual basketball game at the grandparents' house.
Yeah.
Brad wins every year. So that was the one good thing, is we didn't hold the annual tournament or the annual game. So Brad had no bragging rights.
That's good to hear, because Vince and I used to play basketball with Brad, and he used to beat us too. But
well, the idea was to team up with him. He won't let he doesn't have the loose body in his bones. So it's like, even if he has to injure you, he wins. It's like
I think he lost at racquetball once or something.
He couldn't live with it. I think you beat him one time.
Something.
One time. It was like we played hundreds of games.
Yeah.
and we beat him one time, and he was smoldering. It was like he wouldn't let us leave the gym. He's like, no, get back in here. We're playing.
Yeah. It's one more.
So this is gonna be the roast Brad show.
So what's funny is, I have to share.
He's coming back. He's gonna come on the show soon. So
I have to share this.
So
we start out. COVID starts, right? And we're like, all right, let's get some Xboxes and start playing.
Mm-hmm.
We start playing NASCAR. I destroyed them. I mean, not once, not twice. We're talking hundreds of games. We'd meet up, we'd get on three-way phone call, and we would play the dirt track every night. It was a matter of, so what would happen is Ryan and Brad would race, and I would just win. I'd be out like 3 laps. And so, yeah, that's my one feat.
So I have one more story about Brad losing. This is fun. So we're going to keep the roast going on for a second. He came over to my house one night, and my wife and I were playing Mario Kart, and Brad was like, "Oh, I'll play," and he jumped on, and my wife beat him.
Oh, this is good. Yeah.
And he couldn't handle it?
He was so mad.
Yeah.
He was so mad. I think he still holds on to that one. So
if you ever want to mess up like a sermon of his or something, or throw him off, just beat him at something. He won't be able to think straight for
3 days before. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, we love you, Brad, and we know you're winning at life, and that's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyle, why don't you tell me a little bit about your life? What do you do? What's your family life like? Because this is kind of a get to know people too through the church, and you're part of the family. You've been around for a while, and in a way, we've seen you grow up a little bit. I mean, you're young, but you're not super young. But we've seen you get married. We've seen you, start a family, and then get really serious about your faith, and also start your own business and all this stuff. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's I guess to where I'm at now. I have a real estate team. Obviously, I'm very involved in the real estate industry. But what's interesting is it's been like my real estate and my faith almost ran simultaneous, right? It's like as I became like more of a major player in the industry, real estate industry, like my faith just went deeper. And I believe obviously a lot of that has to do with because I went deeper, my faith, I was blessed in ways that I wouldn't otherwise be. But anyways, yeah, I've been in real estate going on 4 years. This year was like insane. It was a really good year. And
during COVID too, which is,
yeah,
you can only attribute that to God, right? I mean,
I believe so. Yeah. I think so. This year, I had set a goal to like hit a certain number, and COVID happened. I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm going to touch it. And then like we're creeping up halfway through the year, and I'm like, holy smokes, we're going to crush this thing.
Yeah. And I want to give you credit too. I think like hard work also matters. I think that's one thing that we don't, I think as Christians, we think if we do things the right way or by the book, right, then God's going to totally bless us. But you also have to put hard work in too. I love the quote by, I think it's St. Augustine, where he says, pray as though everything depends on God, but work as though everything depends on you. And I think that there's a beautiful thing that happens when we work hard, but also give it to God, you know? Because God wants us to work hard. I think he wants us to be disciplined, and he wants us to focus, right?
Right. So the way I look at it, I think God will open the doors, right? But we have to be there to knock them. So like it still requires effort to be successful and to sell real estate. And like I can't just sit on the couch and be like, oh, hey, where's all of these transactions? You know, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, I believe, you know, the Holy Spirit will help you to like know where you need to be, I guess. And then you have to go physically knock the doors, and then yes, God opens those doors.
When did you decide you wanted to do real estate? Like, what was the circumstance around that? You were working.
So I used to be, I mean, okay, so it sounds weird. I've always wanted to be like some sort of I don't know if public figure is the word. I wanted to be like a public known person, and I don't know why. And that's kind of went away actually.
Yeah.
But that's what prior to real estate. And so I was in electrical, and I listened to this book, this audio book, and I was like, you know what? I think real estate's it. I think it's it. But like for me, like I was working 70 hours a week for this electrical company. So a lot of people want to go into real estate because they're like, oh, I get to set my own schedule. It's butterflies and rainbows. And, you know, I get every day off that I want. For me, I was like, I'm putting in 70 hours for an electrical company. Imagine if I did that for myself on my own business. And so that was the mentality I had going into it. But anyway, so I actually thought I wanted to be a real estate investor. Then I realized like, wait, no, I like people and I think that they like me. I'm, you know, it seems like it's a good relationship. And so I was like, you know, maybe this real estate thing works. And so while I was working crazy hours, I got my real estate license, and yeah, it made sense.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense.
No, it makes sense. I love it.
And I had really good positions. So right prior to going into real estate, my job I was a safety manager at the age of 23.
Yeah.
Like what kid has a company truck, a position, a well-paid position, kids, and is like, you know, I'm going to throw away what I did the last 6 years to go all in on real estate. And you have everybody saying like, oh, this isn't going to work.
That's crazy, right? Work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's like when you made that jump to leave like your full-time job, right? The thing that you knew you can make money at to do something that was unknown, right? Because there's no guarantees. Like there's no guarantee that, especially no one could have predicted COVID. So like I'm sure when COVID happened, you're like, oh, this is going to slow me down. But getting over that fear to know you're supposed to do something but do it anyways.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. So like part of it is you don't give yourself a choice but to succeed. And so it's one of those things, if you let off the gas, then yeah, like next year could be really rough if I let off the gas of what I'm doing yesterday. And so you do have to be consistent. You do have to show up. And a lot of it, you do have to trust God, because I prayed a lot about it too. And so when I got my real estate license, I made a literal dedication. Dedicated my business to God. My brother, you know, Brad, walked me through that, and I was like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what this means, but I know that we're going somewhere. And I didn't know what that meant. I knew I wanted to do well. I knew I wanted to connect with people. I didn't know anything outside of that.
So what I've seen a lot of people do is I've seen a lot of people come to me with a vision or an idea, right? And it could have to do with work. It could have to do with a project or something that they want to give their lives to. And they'll bring me this idea. And so I always say, sweet, what's the first step? You know, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to move forward and start to build that? And they look at me sometimes puzzled, like, what do you mean? Like, God's just going to make it happen. But I think that it's an important lesson for us, for all of us, to know that God will give you the vision. And just like you said, He'll show you the door, and he'll open the door, but you do have to knock on it. You do have to walk through it. You do have to put the work in. And I think of Abraham. God told him to go in a certain direction, and he didn't know where it was. He didn't know what was going on, and he just went. He was like, all right, I'll go that way. And he started walking. And you think about like the specifics of that. It's like you think it's really simple. Oh, you just start walking that way. No, he packed up his whole family. Who knows what he had to do to prepare. He probably sold stuff. He probably, had to get all the livestock together. Whatever it is that he had to get together, he had to explain to his wife, listen, we're going to go this direction. Why? Because God told me. And she's like, what? Like what's going on? There's all these hurdles that you have to take. And so I think it's really cool that you've been able to put the vision into action, and not a lot of people are able to do that. So,
well, I think a lot too. Like, I remember talking when you were first starting, and you had a lot of humility with it too. Like, you didn't go in just thinking, "I'm gonna kill this thing." Like, you were asking a lot of people around you. You were getting a lot of marketing advice. You're trying to change it a little bit more than other people, and I think that goes a long way too, being able to come into something that you don't know a lot about, but learn and grow with it versus just trying to solo and isolate yourself, right? Like, because I think you can get isolated when you're like, I'm going to do it on my own and like have this attitude, like, I don't need anybody, I'm going to do this thing, and then end up failing, and you're like, why did I fail,
Yeah, it's funny. What's interesting about that is that I went and asked for help from everybody except for real estate agents because that was one thing I knew I wanted to do different was do it different. Like, so I was big on Gary Vee. And so that a lot of that was the give model, right?
Right.
And so I knew I wanted that model, but a Christian version of it, right?
Right, yeah.
And so that was kind of the model I gave. So when you would go to hear real estate advice from a seminar, I'd hear it and I'm like, that is like salesy and corny and cheesy, and it didn't resonate with me. And so I had to like make up a new way. So part of that was asking everybody around me. And if you'll notice, I was asking consumers, not other agents. I didn't want to know how they were doing it because I didn't want to be like them.
Right.
No, that's good. So what would you attribute to how old are you now?
29 this week.
29. Awesome. Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy early birthday. Yeah.
That's
late.
cool.
Late. Oh, sorry, man.
Sorry.
Dang, we missed it.
That's
We
okay.
assumed it was before.
Wait, no, I said happy birthday to you.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, I did. I was like, I got it. I was
might
like,
have,
wait a second, I did it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 23 to 29, short amount of time, 6 years during what I would consider, at least the last year has been really tough, and you're successful, you're doing well. What would you attribute the most to your success? Like, what would you say?
Man, this would take like hours because it goes through seasons, right?
Sure.
So we'll start out first year, a lot of hard work, right? I didn't really know what I was doing because I just worked really hard.
Yeah.
Second year, a lot of hard work again. And like, I don't think people get how much hard work it actually means. Like, I translated a 70-hour job from something else to a 70-hour job to something else.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was hard work. But then I started getting like smart and efficient with my work and seeking God in it. And like, okay, where do I need to dedicate my time? And so in business, in real estate, everyone has their own business model. Some of it's door knocking, some of it's cold calling, some of it's calling expired sales. Everyone has their model. And when I say that in 4 years, I have never had a consistent model, I cannot be more honest about that. I do whatever my intuition, the Holy Spirit is telling me to do. There's been times where I would be driving to work and like, could not be more serious. Driving to work, I'm like, I need to go knock on that door. I don't know who lives there. I don't know who owns it. I need to go knock on the door. And then a beautiful relationship is formed, and I'm selling their house. And, the Lord's brought up, and we're able to do, kingdom work inside of it. And I can't even count how many times that's happened.
Wow.
And my biggest sell to date as a multi-million-dollar estate was that way. I had a weird gut feeling. I said, I need to call this guy. I called him after a couple of other agents have tried, real agents. I'm a mediocre new agent, right? And so who am I? No one's heard of me. And like, I get the deal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Based off of,
well, how many people would just ignore those thoughts? They would ignore
It's easier to ignore them.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier.
Well, I think it's
really
also
is.
easy to get into a mindset where you have which I think regimen's good. I think structure and planning is good. And like you said, you do have you have a base of the way that you're going to go about stuff, but being able to break out of that structure, like the New Year, it's interesting. People get into they're like, I'm going to start all these New Year goals. And then halfway through, they break all their goals. And then it just, it almost messes them up in some ways, right? Because they don't end up making the goals or doing the things that they said they wanted to do. So it messes them up. But we have to, I think being flexible is huge as like a Christian. Being able to say, you know what, I was doing it this way, but I'm willing to do it this way. Or like you said, hearing God and saying, like, I know everyone thinks this is right, but like I'm going to break off and do something that is completely, it doesn't make sense, but I'm going to do it anyways. But then still putting in the hard work and all the other stuff.
Both. I mean, like, I like how you said you didn't know what you were doing at first, but you did it anyway. Like, you move forward. And I think that that's how you build that structure over time, right? Like, you build it, and then you realize, okay, now I've got this regimen or this like structure that I have, but it still needs to be flexible, and it still needs to be. I think structure always follows your loyalty, and our loyalty is to God, right? Our loyalty is like you said, being led by the Holy Spirit. And so
I think a good point is, so like I'm a very structured person. Like I like to know at least what direction, what I'm doing. But I also have to be okay with not. So this year going into 2020, I felt it on my heart that I needed to partner up in ministry a little bit, deeper. That's with, Pastor Tom, and then Bible studies and all these places.
Yeah.
And I literally had conversations this time last year, and I'm like in my head thinking, Kyle, if you do this, you're going to lose business. If you lose this, you only have this many hours to dedicate to this world, and so it was tough. I'm like, but no, I have to do it. I didn't know, again, going out in faith, and I literally doubled my numbers with less time, and I've been able to, be part of multiple Bible studies and ministries. And
so one thing that I think is biblical, and it's something that we don't really follow that well, is the Sabbath day, right? Having a day where we rest and we don't work. And I think that part of the Sabbath day culture is trusting God. It's not working on purpose, even though you could get more done. And it's saying like, okay, God, I'm going to devote this day to you and my family. And because of that, I'm going to trust you that you're going to take what I do, the 6 days.
That's good.
And you know what I mean? It's like, that's
hard.
Right. But it also makes you work really hard the following days. And so, let me ask you this. Have you had a challenge in balancing work and family life?
Every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like I'm also a huge family man.
Yeah.
Like my daughters are equally important to all of it, right? So like I got to make my time with them, and it was special. So I used to drive my daughter to school back when that was a thing.
Way back when,
back in the old days when we were allowed to go to school.
Yeah.
And so like it was cool. We, I had my morning routines and stuff with her. So yeah, you've got that, but then I sometimes I forget about my wife. I'm like, oh, I got one of those too.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, she needs attention and she needs a husband. And so sometimes, it's hard. I can't tell you how many dinners we've sat down, like restaurants or not, and like I'm gone for the first 30 minutes on the phone.
Yeah.
Or how many, things, school, it didn't matter what it was. Like I make it all, but I'm usually on my phone.
So I was talking to the guys yesterday. We had a Bible study yesterday morning, and we something in the scripture popped up, this idea of as men, it's like our concern in life is based around work, and I think that comes to the security side. Like we want to make sure that we are preparing, providing for our family. We want to make sure that we're taking care of everyone. We want to make sure that we're successful so that we have more security for our families. Then our wives, their concern is for the family structure and for us to be there, and yes, to provide, but also for us to, be emotionally stable in their lives and all this stuff. And so wives end up focusing more probably on the kids and on the home and the security factor, and men focus more on work. And I think sometimes it's hard to see those partnering up together, but they do. It's a matter of showing our families that they're important as well, but also showing them that we have to work in order to provide. And I'm old fashioned. I mean, women can, I get it. Women can work and totally provide as well. And I know there's some men that are like disabled and their wives are working and vice versa. And some, there's a lot of marriages where the wife and husband both work. And I get it. There's a lot of balancing that goes out there. And so I'm not saying that that's not a good thing, but in my life, I feel a pressure to work and be successful because of my family and because of, what I also feel God leading me to do, which is a whole different thing, right?
Well, I think there's a big disconnect too. Like when you have, like in church, in business too, we just use the word, but we talk about vision, right? We talk about vision in church. Like what's the vision of the church? And then we talk about our businesses and we're like, what's the vision of our business, right? But we don't talk about vision in our homes,
right?
Like what the vision is. And like, I think if your wife and even your kids are smaller, but I have a 13-year-old in the house, but we talk about like, hey, what's our vision? Like, what do we want to see as a
real
family?
for you. You're so lucky.
No, right? Yeah, I had to
he's
say
not
like
in
13,
school.
but it's cool because it's like some ways it's like I'm getting a whole year with him. I feel like I would not have got like post COVID that he's at home, and we were talking. I was telling the guys
that is
like,
the blessing of COVID.
oh, it is so
it's
cool.
bringing families closer.
100%. But I think there has to
think.
be vision in homes. Like when we talk about vision in church vision, like you're like you said, we go to work because we have to, and your wife is like doing her own thing, and it's like, but there's no vision as a unit. They can get really messy,
No, you're
right? And so, but if everybody's on that same vision in the home, I think you're able to get over a lot more conflict. You're able to be able to work as a unit and say, hey, I do have to put these extra hours in this week, but it's part of our vision, right?
So
but
if
if it
you
isn't part of the vision, you're able to kill it and say, like, that doesn't match our vision.
If you have a vision at home, okay, you have a vision at work, and then you have a vision with ministry,
right?
Those shouldn't conflict with each other.
They shouldn't. No,
they shouldn't. They should
help each other.
They should work together. And I think that the glue there is the Holy Spirit. 100%. It is God leading us, right?
It's the 7 equities, is
and
what
it's
we call
also
it in real estate.
Okay, but it's also like saying no to the things that are not necessary. And there's a lot of things that are not necessary.
And it's really hard for people to say no, but I think it's harder for them because if you like in your business, if you know something isn't right for your business, you have to say no, right? Because it could take time away from all these different things. But if you have that vision for your home and you're able to say like that doesn't fit, right? Like the guys want you to go out on a weekend and do this thing. You're like, I would love to do that. I love my friend, but it doesn't fit the vision for my family this week. It's easier to say no and say like, hey, I can't do that because this is where we're at and stuff. And it may sound weird, but I think overall, like if you're able to get to that place where you're unified in that, then you're able to get over conflict with your kids, conflict with your wife, conflict with your with your workspace, because like you said, it should all line up.
I talk to my wife every time. I'm like, if we're gonna go do something, go fishing or doing something, motorcycle riding or whatever we do, I always talk to my wife. I'm like, hey,
I will admit I'm bad. It's funny because like we went on a fishing trip with the guys. We all went up to Mammoth fishing, and that night everyone's in a group text with all the guys. And we're like, hey, you guys want to leave tonight? I'm like, yeah, let's leave tonight. I think we can do this like 10 o'clock at night. And my wife was already asleep. I'm like, oh, she knows I'm leaving like at 4 a.m. So I'll text her in the morning. so I took off and I said, babe, I'm leaving, but I knew she was halfway asleep. So we get on the road. And she calls, she's like, hey, where did you go? She wakes up out of a dead sleep. I'm like, oh, I left fishing. And she's all, you did what? And the guys are like, was that easier to leave than to wake her up and explain? I'm like, way easier. So I'm not always the best.
Thing too is if you want to throw a fourth dimension in there, I think men need to be able to go out and do like adventurous things together. I mean,
I ask for forgiveness.
Right.
I don't ask for permission.
I mean,
I just do. Yeah. But the thing is, I know my boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything that's going to be like detrimental. Ish.
Right.
But
I believe I'm a better husband if I go on a motorcycle ride or go out and hike or do something.
I'm a way better dad after I'm golfing.
Yeah. Right.
It depends on your golf day, though, right?
Yeah. That's true.
No, I think guys need that. I really do. I think it's healthy, and I think women need it too. I think women need to be with their friends.
100%.
And talk whatever they talk and do the. I don't know. I don't understand women. I don't understand what they need, but I know they need something. So
again, vision, Josh.
Vision.
If you knew the vision,
in the family,
you would be okay with it. Yeah.
So what's next? What are you thinking now? I mean, what's your focus right now? I mean, what are you excited about?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited and ready to embrace another interesting year. I have fell in love with this last year. Obviously, the time with the kids, like you were saying. My girls, those are like my ride or dies.
Yeah.
So they go. So I'm excited for that.
How old are they again?
6 and almost 4.
Okay. Yeah,
and he has them on motorcycles.
You have a 4-year-old.
Huh? He has them on motorcycles.
Yeah,
really?
They both have Harley Davidsons.
Wait, what?
Electric.
Oh,
but then they have they have little dirt bikes too, right?
So they're basically they're electric motorcycles, but not like a 2-year. They're pretty rad. They go like 14 miles an hour.
Okay.
Like they move.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. My wife will get on and she could ride them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun.
That's cool. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm ready to embrace that. So another year with the family. I enjoy it. We talked about like even if school opens back up, I don't want to send them back anyways.
Yeah.
This is the first year my wife hasn't had to go back to work. She usually works a 60-hour week job.
Yeah.
In the produce industry. And so her business is usually crazy. So this is her first year not doing that. So I'm sure she's enjoying it. So that's family life. That's the family vision, right? A lot more time together.
Yeah.
Business, I want to obviously replicate what I did this year. I want to double down on my ministry. And ministry to me is just like wherever God's taking me in that moment.
Yeah, sure.
It's Bible study. It's, partnering with people in business and, doing life with them. Just however that works, I just know that I want to remain in the word and some.
Yeah.
So that's important. I want to grow my team this year. That wasn't really the focal point of last year. Last year was like the year of like, can I do this?
Right.
And I did. So last year, like I said, hit insane record numbers, and I was able to see like, oh, okay, this is doable.
Yeah.
So of course I want to do that again, but now I want to grow outward, and I want to create a culture. So like, there's me.
Right.
I want to create a culture that's like me. I guess I know that sounds bad, but when I say like me, I actually don't mean like me. I mean like a culture that's more focused on other things than they are on immediate business in real estate.
That makes sense. We talk about education, going back to that, and with your kids not going to school and, that whole thing. I think education is changing forever. I really do. I think that COVID is going to change the way we do things.
I'm not a fan of school. I'm not one of those guys that's like, I don't even know how I graduated high school. I do know I begged a teacher to pass me.
Well, it's interesting.
I'm good with it.
It's interesting because with
sells, right?
With business and school and everything else that we do, church, the ones that are going to survive through this time are the ones that are adapting to it. Have you had to adapt the way, because you've been in real estate for a little while, have you had to adapt the way you do business with COVID? And is there
absolutely.
a lot of...
So of course things are done different, but I think the most important part is not backing off.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like hitting the brakes or at least letting off the gas.
Right.
Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't meet. Like, no, I'm meeting every client that I can.
Yeah.
Still.
Sure.
Be safe, of course, adapt that way.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people are like, oh no, we have to do Zoom. The only time I've used Zoom is for Bible studies.
Yeah.
No, we're meeting belly to belly, we're talking, and we're getting together.
Right. I think people will probably appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big life decision too. Like you want to be able to look somebody in the face, like right, not over a screen, and say, like, "Hey, we're doing a deal."
It's so wild to me how much the real estate market has changed, also because of COVID. Right? I mean, people are upgrading their homes because they're spending more time in their homes. They are moving further away from their businesses because they don't have to drive to their businesses. Now that might change, and it might go back to where bosses are going to want people back in the office. But I think for the most part, businesses are also thinking, man, like, we're saving a lot of money by not having to pay for this office
That'll
space.
be the next
And I think,
right?
I think you're going to see that shift. I think a lot of businesses now, especially because of where we're at, California, right? We're in a micro or we're in a small area that it's different. But if you don't have to pay workman's comp for all these people showing up in your office, and you don't have to pay insurances, and you don't have to do all this stuff, and they can work from home, and they're doing just as good a job, and in some ways they're more motivated to work from home and have some flex time than I think you're going to see that shift.
With all that digital lifestyle stuff going on, the importance of meeting in person, I think, is even more than ever. I think that, like, Bible studies, like we meet in person. We keep the groups small to keep them safe, and we're meeting at church in person as well. Again, being safe, we're social distancing, the whole thing.
There's a safe way to do it.
There is. And I think being responsible, because this thing is real, but also not being controlled by, people that are in the government that are probably overstepping their bounds. I'm probably going to get kicked off Facebook now. So
Thanks.
Yeah. Oops. But there's I like it when I see people with common sense doing what they believe they need to do.
I think things that are already, community was already important to them, they'll continue to do community. We're going to, at some point, I mean, I keep saying we're going to come out of COVID, but at some point we'll have community again,
Right.
But I do think there's a lot of things, like you were saying, businesses and corporations are looking and reshifting the way they're doing stuff because they're able to save more money and do it more effectively than they didn't think it was possible before, and so they're seeing that. So I don't think you're going to see the community thing change where people need to meet together.
The last event that really changed the way we do life was 9/11, right? And that was one day. Like one day. How old you were? Probably pretty young in 9/11. I remember I was 21, and before 9/11, it was like you went to the airport, you walked right through. Travel wasn't a big deal. You weren't looking over your shoulder. Then after that, it's like everyone was looking over their shoulder and they were afraid. There was a lot of fear after 9/11 for a long time. And some of that is still there, but with that fear, then also policy changes happened. So I think with COVID lasting as long as it has, being kind of an invisible threat, which is even a little scarier for some people,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of fear for a long time. And so those of us that have the ability to relinquish that fear with your clients and with us with the church, and I think that we just need to say, hey, let's have common sense. Let's be safe, but let's also move forward. And, life has to move forward.
It's kind of
just
great
does.
in some ways because you have people that operate. You have the people that operate in fear, and then you have the people that are using that fear to reinvent where they're at.
Right.
Because it's easy to get fearful and then become, put yourself into a coma in some ways, or a fear like you're so afraid that you don't do anything. But then you have the people that are using that fear to reinnovate and change the way we're doing things.
Right.
And so I think it's good. I think you're having, obviously, I wish COVID never happened, of course, but because people are able to use that fear in a healthy way, it's really changing. And it's even changed. Like, I think about even the fact that we're doing this web show. I don't think we would have done this. Maybe we've always had this vision.
Yeah.
But COVID has definitely pushed it forward, and I think that's good. And I think you're going to see more things come out of this that are really, really good because people aren't dying. They're not able to take that fear and do something good with it, you know? And so I think that's important.
Definitely. Well, 2021 is going to be a good year. So if you want to, how do people get a hold of you if they need to sell a house
Or buy a house.
Yeah, or buy.
or buy a
Yeah.
house? Right.
No, I'm easy to get a hold of.
Okay.
I've always got my phone, Instagram, Facebook.
So Kyle Lawson,
message,
check him
all
out. Good dude and an honest guy. And that's probably one of the biggest attributes that you can give to the business world, right? Is just being honest.
Yeah, well, a lot of that too is like, it's easy not to be that, right? So
Yeah.
especially in the industry that I'm in, I've seen so many areas or opportunities where it's like someone could totally be taken advantage of in this or that.
Mhm.
We've seen it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that reality check of like the Lord, like, hey, what are you doing here?
Right.
That's a real thing.
And
So-
also, you have to be honest about people's value of their home.
Mhm.
People probably, it's worth more or whatever, right? And you
Yeah.
have to tell them this is what it's actually going to sell for. That's an honest thing.
Well, I think the trend in real estate is to sell people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how many times I've told people not to sell and like, hey, no, maybe you shouldn't. Whereas I know that I'm taking money out of my pocket every time I do.
Yeah.
But the reality is I have to trust that it's going to come back around at some point.
It will. No, it will.
It
And I
will.
believe that 100%. I mean,
I've
being
told
honest
a lot of people.
and being real, dude, integrity matters so much.
I had a girl.
so
this is-
much.
and then this will be the last one. So I had a gal 2 days ago, and it was actually the craziest God story. This woman, she spoke this prophetic word over my daughters. Like my eyes were watering. It was insane. Right in the middle of a condo complex. But anyways, she's like, all right, I'm ready to write an offer. And I was like, well, I want you to go think about it. She's like, no, I'm good. Just go write the offer. And I'm like, okay, look, I'll pretend like I'm gonna go write the offer. Think about it, talk about it, sleep on it.
Mhm.
Well, we ended up just chit-chatting, and the next day she's like, you know what, it's not for me. And I'm like, thank you, but easy
Yeah.
I could have got her in contract and
Right, yeah.
enforced that sell.
Yeah. Well, that reputation will follow you wherever you go, and people talk, and we talked about this right before the podcast. That humans just have this ability to see people's hearts.
Mhm.
We have this ability to, if we look long enough, if we hang out long enough, you just see people's hearts, and you have a good heart. And I think that maybe you don't
Yeah.
do everything right all the time. None of us do.
Mhm.
But as far as being honest, as far as being doing the best you can to honor God in everything you do, and then going out and working hard and just doing your job, that's a good thing. You're providing a service. And so I think if everyone took that idea, especially those that are young out there that are trying to figure out what you're doing with your life, if you applied that to your life, that work ethic and the integrity, you're going to be good. You're going to be fine. But also give it to God. And I know Kyle gives a lot to the Lord financially and time-wise, and he's trying to give more. And so God will always bless us when we do that too. And I think he creates a larger capacity in our heart to love and to take care of people around us. And so I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm happy to do it, and you know what? It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but it's always worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
We'll have you again. We're gonna have your brother pretty soon, so he can rag on you a little bit. So sorry.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Should have had him first, and then
Yeah.
But anyway, all right.
No,
so,
I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you. I hope I love being connected with all of you guys. It's a great community. It's a good family. This is my home.
yeah,
Anyone who knows me knows that this community is my home. Like
definitely.
I realized like I made it one day. This was like me making it in the church community. like something happened, and I forget what it was now, but so I get this phone call, and I had all these phone calls. People like ask me questions about something. I'm like, why is everyone calling me? And I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm in. Like, people are calling me because I'm in. It was like,
I'm in.
I'm one of them.
I'm one of the
That's
church
funny.
guys.
It's a good community. I'm grateful to be a part of
That's
all of
cool.
this.
We're glad that you're here,
anything to
man.
help.
And if anybody feels like they're not connected, just get involved, man,
Yep.
or just get
It's
involved.
easy. It's honestly mental. It's a family with open arms.
It is, and I hope it always stays that way. So, anyway. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll be back next week with another show. You guys have a good week, okay? Good weekend.